I love naps.
Yeah. Oh, I live and die for my naps.
We are live.
Yay.
Welcome, everybody.
So, yeah, welcome, everybody.
Chris is dialing in from the road, so signals touch and go.
Yeah.
We've renamed him Speak and Spell.
Speak and Spell. God help us. I can't even edit my own settings because I have no clue how the hell to do it on this flipping mobile version. I could probably get the laptop out, then I'd be fine. But this works. This works.
Oh yeah. Okay. Can I change? Oh no. All right. I got the mobile version too because I'm on an iPad.
Yeah, I thought I could change it. I have no clue how to do it.
You can go if you go to participants.
Yeah.
You'll see your name and then click on it and you'll see rename. But Ryan will just name you back again.
Yep.
Because he's host.
Oh, totally cool. Actually, what I want to do is not necessarily rename. I want to put a picture up, but I don't know. I'll figure this shit out Monday.
This guy hacks airplanes.
Which should tell you something about that. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
My beard looks kind of bushy today.
It's
do that.
Yeah, that's what happens
Did you
when
get it with
you
oil?
Yeah.
beard balm.
Need oil
Yeah,
on
beard
mine.
balm. I always look mad too. Do I look mad?
Well,
No, I don't.
You have resting something face.
Is that better?
That's much better.
No, that looks like you're holding in a fart or something.
No, I just let those go. That's how you end meetings quick. Just fart.
In person, virtually, people just like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Dude, I had 2 meetings today. So check it out. I don't know. All right. So I had one meeting today. I was soaking my feet in the bathtub and giving myself like a pedicure while I was in the meeting.
Oh,
I love it.
Love it. The things that we can do on Zoom conference.
People are creative as hell with the work from home.
Yeah.
I don't blame them. I totally don't blame them.
Well, and let's be honest, guys. How many calls do we sit on in a given day where we're literally sitting on the call? We're just there to be there. We don't necessarily have an agenda or action items. We're just waiting basically to hear our name called or hey, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
That's probably 30% of the calls I'm on.
Yeah, I don't know. Most of the calls, I think they expect me to talk. For whatever reason. I think it's probably a title. It's probably a title thing. You know what I mean? We'll let the CEO talk, even though I got nothing to say.
Right.
Yeah, Jen just said she's like, in God's forbids that you're not on to answer the one question they just decide to come up with you in like an hour or 2 hours worth of bloody meetings.
Yep.
Dude, I'm so good at faking my way through that shit now. Like, yeah, that's a great idea. I think we should go ahead and do that. Why doesn't somebody document that and just route that around?
Can I get that in an email?
We'll take a look. Yeah. And then you get the email and you're like, holy shit, hell no.
I mean, that is one of those things. That is if the current, well, that's the problem. Then somebody sends you an email that's 6 pages long and you're like, can I just have like 4 or 5 bullet points and be done with it? More productivity.
Yeah.
I don't need
Speak and spell.
What Chris said was
that's clearly what I heard.
Speak and spell. No. Change mine to the unemployable.
Was that English? What was that? I don't
know what that
was. Something about his toga? I don't know.
But Chris, no matter what, you got to fight through this. This is awesome. You're part of the entertainment tonight.
Oh God, hang on.
I love it. So I called us together tonight to talk about a topic. This week I've been thinking a lot about what's been unfolding, and there's this very, very small part of me that kind of wants to rub my hands together and go, ha, I told you this day was coming. Because finally it seems like they're taking cybersecurity seriously. We're seeing the White House put out all kinds of memorandums and announcements and dictates and executive orders. We see the insurance companies starting to grow up and go, wait a second, that's too much risk to cover. So there's like a super tiny part of me that's just like, haha, I told you, feel the pain, you deserve the pain. That's like the sliver of Chris mind that I have, right? Haha, you get the taser. But the other part of me says, okay, so if the funding's there, if the support's there, there's still no real guidance and leadership in an effective way. There's lots of smarty pants frameworks and super smart security people with super smart ideas. But the folks that actually run these organizations, not operating at those levels. So then I start thinking, okay, how do we do this? How do we simplify this? How do we apply the KISS principle? How does this work? And it dawns on me that the last handful of events are directly related to poor software management. They're not doing a good job development testing and having security baked into the product from the word go, having security part of it. We've created DevSecOps to try to deal with it, but really a lot of that's after the fact, right? We should be part of the agile process. Security should be involved at the requirements development stage. And so that spawned tonight's topic: to code scan or not to code scan. That is the question, right? Security adds overhead, adds time, blows, budgets on projects, especially if we weren't budgeted for in the beginning. We delay releases, and we need to do that stuff. But I think we've hit a point now as a society where if somebody's going to say who's ultimately accountable, and the shit rolls all the way to the bottom of the hill, it's the development practices. It's the software makers and their development practices that are resulting in as many vulnerabilities being out there as there are, and resulting in 0-day vulnerabilities that could have been caught had they followed proper security testing of the code and of the application. So I'm going to step off my soapbox and hand it to you guys and say, code scanning, mandatory, optional, who cares?
Well, I don't know if it's code scanning or just, coding best practices, because code scanners aren't going to catch everything either, right? I mean, if you have shit at the beginning, it's not uncommon. Like, take for instance, one of the things that Chris, called out on the on Twitter. You have so many different libraries that you're calling from nowadays. There's so many steps in the code has just gotten so fucking complicated that scanners they're effective for sure. I mean, that needs to be part of your best practice, but it can't be the best practice. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Well, and I don't think, when I say code scanning, I know that's a very narrow thing. There's static, there's dynamic, there's different methods. What I'm really actually driving at is destructive testing as part of the build process, unintended use case testing, fuzzy testing, doing this as you build the component, not just the application, right? Did you do input validation? Are you even testing for input validation as part of your QA process, right? I think that so many fundamentals, and we always talk about fundamentals, and I started thinking about that in the context of software development, and where are those security fundamentals within the coding itself? Are we even doing that? I don't think we are. I don't think we're doing enough of that. If we were doing testing a module and actually running it through its paces, I feel like we would catch 98% of the shit that's slipping through today.
Right. Well, like Chris just said in the chat, I don't know if he's still speaking spelling or not. But SDLCs, we've had SDLCs, you're right, forever. Chris's point is we've had SDLCs since the beginning of PCI, and actually before that, right?
Yeah.
But to your point, Chris, I mean, you got to care, and nobody will care if you're not fucking held accountable.
I mean, and so I think again, it's back to. Can you guys hear? Well, I don't care if you can hear me or not. You're either going to hear me or you're not.
I hear you.
Splendid. It's, to me, a lot of it's going to come down to a couple of different things we've talked about it numerous times. We can code scan the hell out of something, and I can go along. I can do my development. I can hand it to you, and you'll come back and go, "Here's 100 things you need to fix," and you're going to go, "Oh, you asshole! You're now the gatekeeper and the person that tells me no," or you're going to have a fight with somebody to say what's good, what's bad, and what's ugly. It's security scanning for code, which doesn't work in the first and foremost anyway. To me, this comes back to the education. It comes back to the collaboration side of it, which basically means I can't be a gatekeeper. I have to be an educator. I have to go to you and go, "Hey, in a month's time, this is what I'm going to look for. How can I help you understand now how to build this in?" Contrary to that, and actually complementary to that, the development teams also have to come to the table and go, "Hey, we're going to hand code to you in a month's time. How can we learn what not to get caught up in a month's time?"
But why? I mean, it's risk reward. It's risk reward, right? I mean, you're in business to make money.
Yeah.
The shareholders want that new feature or that new whatever out like now.
Yeah.
And your security shit's going to slow them down. And even if there is a bug and something goes shit, there's no accountability. There's no real consequences for it. So fuck it.
Well, and so that comes to, so now we get to the point on the scale where we're like, okay, who is accountable? Is it the developer who coded it? Is it the fact the company didn't train them or educate them? Is it the development team who weren't integrated to security, or is it security who weren't integrated to development? Is it the education system that just pumps them out to be able to code and not to code securely? Is it us that haven't educated the education system to do it? Or is it just bloody human nature that says, screw it, I want it now, I want it quickly, and I want to make money on it, and somebody else can deal with the problem?
Well, I think you need to set, the reason why compliance hasn't worked well is it's been so sort of nebulous, right? It's a difficult thing because if you make it too prescriptive, right, then it becomes too rigid, and then you start to kind of block maybe the innovation shit. But there are certain best practices that there's just no excuse for not having those things in place, right? So I think you have to start, and I do think you need to slow down a little bit. You need to make it sting enough to where the risk exceeds the reward, right? So we get this thing out like pronto, but there's a breach and we didn't do these, 10, 20 required things. You get $50 million fine or something that's really going to hurt.
Yeah, but I mean, as well as I do. I mean, how long's the OWASP top 10 been almost the same? I mean, 10 years? How many years have we had the OWASP top 10 to be almost the same? That's best practice. I mean, that's simple shit. We haven't even.
But nobody enforces it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. But should we really? It goes back to punitive. Why the hell do we always have to be punitive in our education?
Well, I think you have to because people are hurt, right? I mean, that's the only reason why you would do punitive is because somebody suffered because of your shit.
All right, so let's take this to the stuff I was dicking around with last week, and I put a brief thing out on, I think, LinkedIn or somewhere, which was the light bulbs. So we can now do some really interesting stuff with those new light bulbs, especially the ones where they've gone to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer said, yeah, you can have the circuit board. Oh, by the way, yeah, it still has these chips on it that do audio and that do a couple of other things. Oh, you don't need them. Don't worry about it. Just disable them. Nobody does. So all Numpty here does is re-enable them. Now I can actually start listening in on almost every single freaking light bulb that's out there. Now, who's taking GE to court? Who's taking Nest to court? Who's taking Philips to court to say, hey, you dumbasses, what in the hell's name do you think you were doing?
Well, so it's either going to be we regulate ourselves, right, the industry, or the government will step in. The government always steps in to regulate on things that, you know, we just fuck up. Like PCI got ahead of the curve a little bit, so they self-regulated for the payment card industry. I think we have to do something similar.
But so okay, let's take PCI, and I wish we had what's his name from Hack Naked. PCI on its own, I actually don't have a problem with. I think it's actually a great guideline. I think if people took it to heart, I think it's a great guideline. But now the problem we have is people like, well, am I doing PCI? Well, hang on, I've got this data, so I got to do the healthcare one. Well, hang on, oh shit, I've got stuff in Massachusetts and California. I got to deal with those ones. Oh hell, I'm doing European stuff. Shit, I got to do GDPR. Oh bollocks, we're actually coding stuff now. I got to do, the Evan, Ryan, and the unemployables freaking security controls. Everybody's head spinning because we can't actually even agree upon a single set of freaking controls that just say do the right fucking thing. That's it.
Well, that's it. True. And that's why the government, it will eventually step in. If we don't figure this out ourselves, we don't come up with a common set of required controls.
Did you see NIST, Ron? Is it Ron Ross from NIST? Is it Ron? Yeah, it is. He has now stepped into the DevSecOps world and is actually, on behalf of like the NIST government side of the world, really starting to get his hands around the DevSecOps side of the world. So I honestly, Evan, I think that is a foretelling that I think the government is going to step in and go, guys, you can't even do your own house. But then the problem is now we have just another freaking set of controls. We need to wipe all this other shit out and say, look, here are globally or within the continental United States, just the two sets of freaking controls you need to adhere to, end of discussion, rather than 20 different ones.
Well, here's the jacked up part. We already did that. I can take any framework right now, lay it on the table, and if I say, what are the required controls in your framework, I'm going to have a 98% overlap.
Yeah. Yes. There we go.
So we've already done it. The problem is I go back to our industry has this desperate need to be right and to be smart. And so my framework is better than your framework. And
well, and money too, man.
Money, the greed factor's a real deal. Yeah. But it's the same shit we preach all the time, right? Assets. Do you have them? Do you know where they are?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone out there asks that question.
Nobody does. Although I had a really nice conversation with some people down in Texas who assured me they knew where all their assets were. So I asked like two other questions and they're like, well, I'm like, all right, so why don't we go back to basics and have that conversation again? And let's take the dicks off the table. Let's put the egos away. There's no right or wrong here. There's just reality. And guys, I know what reality is. Don't try and fool me.
Yeah. I don't know what I want for a background.
Ooh, I like that one. That's good.
Yeah.
Everything's on fire is never a bad one.
There you go.
Death, destruction.
I honestly, Ryan, I would rather we do code scan as much as I'm against all the regulatory and everything else because we out-regulate ourselves. What I would love to see, and this isn't doing it as a plug for you guys, I'm doing it is because I want reality. I want to pick up a Nest, or I want to pick up, like the camera in the rig that we have. That's cameras I have. I picked up the cameras. I know I'm going to take those to pieces when. Yeah, those are coming to pieces because I want to see how bad they are. What I want to do though is I want to pick up that camera or that device or that piece of software and know what its score is. I want to know what I'm letting myself in for. I want to know if what I'm picking up is a 300 and holy shit, this thing better never see the light of day on the internet. Or, hey, this actually might do what it says on the box and protect my fucking family because it's a 6, 7, or an 800.
Well, and I think we're going to get there. I think we have to have so I've talked about this before, a consumer safety standard. We have laws in place that manage products that can cause harm. We just have to collectively as a group acknowledge that IT products fit the definition of products that can cause harm and apply the exact same fucking standards. No need to make new ones. Take the existing ones, lay them right on top. I'm so tired of IT being a separate thing, of technology being a ancillary to our lives.
Yeah.
Use it as the primary means for existing in the current society. So
If you
and we just keep pussyfooting around, right? I mean, you talk about the OWASP top 10. That has been around forever, but has anybody ever enforced it?
No.
I mean, you got NIST-CSF. NIST-CSF is critical infrastructure, like fucking critical. And you make it voluntary. It's like, what the fuck? What are we going to make mandatory?
Well, and that's where I think we have to have a consumer safety index, right? I can buy products that are less safe than other products. I am entitled to do that as a consumer, but there is a consumer safety index and it tells me, hey, this one's prone to falling apart and blowing up and taking you out. And this one, you know, is guaranteed for industrial use and has a high safety.
This is a great idea. What about a software safety index?
Bingo bongo.
Right? You take into account the number of lines of code. You take into account the number of, libraries that are called from open source. You take into account all these things that have some contribution to risk, right? You take into account whether you do code scanning or not. You take, and so you can choose in your application development process to not do certain things, but your index, it might suffer for it, right? And then anybody who gives a shit, well, then if I'm the consumer and I look and I buy this thing and it's got a really shitty safety index, well, then, that's kind of on me, right?
Well, and not to get all markety and buzz termy, but if you called it a ransomware index, here's how likely this product is to result in you getting ransomware. You'd get people's attention.
Yeah, your ass is great. Yeah, but again, if we do that, somebody somewhere's got to educate the end user and the consumer. Here's my call out on this, and I'm not picking on it because I know the pair of you partake, but I'm not getting preachy. But let's face it, you pick up a packet of cigarettes. On the side of that cigarettes, it says, "This shit's gonna kill you," or "It's got the potential to fucking kill you." What do? Still pick the damn things up and still smoke them. Now, do you even consider that when you go in and buy that? Does that even bother you? Do you think about it? Do you consider it? Do you care?
Yeah.
Do you argue?
Yeah,
or do you just buy it anyway?
Well, I do, because it's risk management.
Okay.
Right? I'm not going to blame somebody else for my lung cancer.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So maybe that's all it is. So, literally, you guys saw the stuff I put in the text. Buying Symantec will cause cancer. Buying McAfee is dangerous to your health. Buying this product will reduce your safety. You literally put that shit in big letters on the side of the software and the hardware. Installing a Google Nest in your household will likely result in, in death. You start putting that shit. In fact, hell, I'd love to do like an urban underground, print off 1,000 stickers and go stick them on all the Samsungs and bloody Nests and stuff in all the Best Buys or somewhere. That'd be fun to do.
Well, I like that, but being that security is relative, I think coming up with a metric between a range rather than, because people understand that shit better. They can relate to it. Like if it's 0 to 100, let's say, or you can use our scale, or FICO scale, 300 to 850, and I buy something that's a 400. Yeah. Well, it's on me to do the research to find out why that thing's a 400 and try to put in mitigating controls.
But I want to know. Okay, let's take that to that next level. I absolutely 100% agree with you. But unless you put it into context, so perfect example, let's take your 400. If I walk in to buy a car, a Mercedes, and my credit score is 400, if once they've finished laughing, they're going to require 75% down, and I'll have a 23% APR. That is the consequence of my credit score being 400. If I go in with a score of 850, after they've rolled out the red carpet, licked my shoes, and given me champagne, I'll get 0% interest for the next, 60 years. And I get a free S-Class with every Christmas. And I know that's a consequence of having an 850. We need to understand what the consequences are in the security world, laid out in very, very simple terms that every human can understand.
So I think our friends in the insurance industry are about to help us out with that.
Ooh, Ray, tell me more.
So will the government ultimately regulate? Yes. And I believe they'll regulate when the insurance industry lobbies them to come up with a universal standard, because now that the insurance industry is taking this shit serious, and it's not, oh yeah, we'll charge them $200 for 20 million in coverage. They'll never use it. To holy shit, everybody we've issued coverage to called in all at once.
Yes.
I think they're gonna, so I've already seen it with a bunch of my clients where that 3-page is now 13.
Yep.
3-page questionnaire just turned into a 13-page questionnaire, right? Because they want to get deeper into the risk. They want to
here's the crazy fucking thing, man, because we talked to the insurance companies 2-3 years ago or more.
Yeah.
And the one thing they told us was your assessment's too long.
Yep.
It's like, well, fuck, you have to do it this long. Well, we just do a 1-page or 9 questions. I'm like, and you're fucking underwriting on that shit?
Right.
Yeah.
You have no actuarial data. So your only purpose is to get paper on the street, not really to underwrite risk. And so you're going to, and we explain this shit to them. And now it's funny that they're on a 13-page and eventually it'll be a 25-page. And
yep. And
there still isn't,
that,
there still isn't shit.
Full compliance.
There still isn't shit for actuarial data, right?
Right.
So your traditional way of underwriting, insurance doesn't apply here.
Right. So I do think though that that's going to be the industry that helps make this shit mandatory, and everybody can understand higher insurance rates. Everybody gets that. That's a right into my wallet kind of situation. When your business is now paying 30, 40, 45% higher premium for coverage because you're not doing the right things, which I think will be the next 2 years. And then at year 3, I think they're going to outright deny coverage. They're just going to go, we do have enough data now, at least the beginnings of some actuarial data, because we started to give a shit. So we started to pay attention and collect things and ask better questions. Right. And then it's going to be, you're too risky. I can't.
What did you say?
I've been doing this for years. Trust me. If you have a credit score of 300, business law, they're going to tell you to get bricks.
Right. So take this back to software development, because you're right, man. In terms of managing security in your own organization, absolutely. That's always been the push. If you manage risk well, compliance is a piece of cake. Mm-hmm. If you start going compliant, it's a fucking shit show. So, do it the right way. But on the application development side of things, one of the things that frustrates me is I can't think of another industry where I buy a product from you, your product, a deficiency or a problem in your product causes me loss and eventually causes me maybe death, right? Because as we go to autonomous shit and start implants and all that other fucking shit, there'll be errors in the code that will cause people to die.
Yeah.
This is the only place I know where you can't really sue them for it.
Right. But yet you can. It's just that fucking EULA got rid of your ability to sue them.
Right. So take Microsoft, for instance. I have no choice but to use Microsoft. I have no choice but to accept their EULA. Microsoft fucks around and I get print whatever the fucking die. You know what I mean? And I got no recourse.
Yeah. Jen just said in the healthcare industry, the whole medical malpractice is actually an interesting case study that could be applied towards our industry. You start thinking about it. I mean, you start whenever you want to go use a service or look at something, you have the ability to look up, what their case history is, what happened, how it happened. You've got a litany of history there to understand what the risks are of using a certain physician or a surgeon or something, or healthcare facility.
Right.
Because the thing with
So-
with like Microsoft, man, things went so fast, right? And we knew this. We adopted technology way faster than our ability to secure it, way faster than our ability to be responsible with it. And so now we've got this big, huge fucking mammoth company that really, you know, the rest of us are kind of screwed if, you know, whatever happens. You know what I mean?
Well, yes and no, though, because they are the problem, you know what we need? We need ambulance chasers. We need some of those infomercial ambulance chasing ass lawyers. Have you or your family member who are currently dead or dying been near or around asbestos ever in your life? If so, call 1-800 we gonna sue you.
Have you or your family ever been harmed by Microsoft Excel? Because the fucking thing crashed in the middle of fucking research.
I love you, but you're gonna have to talk up.
Yes, and it gave me high blood pressure, and now I'm closer to death.
Yeah. Jen says, as she was saying, it's negligence. So we got to your point. We go after them from a negligence standpoint. And again, hate to say it, Ryan, if it is software that's causing that problem or that's had that issue, that's a negligence. You knew everything's been out there. OWASP has been out there. Training has been out there. The capabilities and abilities to better understand your environments and all aspects around it, the tools are at your disposal. It is negligence, the simple fact that you have chosen not to employ, engage, or utilize those tools. Therefore, your ass belongs to me.
Well, so you'd have to define it as negligence, because the way it sits today, it's not negligence. The way it sits today, negligence lives where there's no lack of due care, right? Or due diligence. And so, and they measure that by what would a reasonable person do in a similar situation. And so today, being that all software development companies kind of do the same fucking shit, you can write shitty code and not be negligent.
Oh, can you anymore though?
They're still doing it.
Can you anymore? I mean, we went through, let's think about the last, I don't know, 6-12 months. SolarWinds, Microsoft, all these big ones have gotten their ass hit, and they've gotten themselves hit because of it. So the precedence has been set that we now understand. There is now no more ability for us to say, oh, we didn't realize.
Well, there's precedent. There might be precedent set, but no legal precedent, right? There's been.
Somebody needs to bring an implied liability case. So implied liability, right? This is something I learned about a couple months ago. Essentially, let's say you run a rock quarry, okay, and you're detonating dynamite to rocks. Now, because what you're doing is so inherently dangerous, if one of those rocks is to leave the quarry and blow through someone's windshield, you're on the hook, period. Hard stop, end of story, because you were engaged in activity that is known to be dangerous, known to be risky. We know software can be attacked. We know that poorly developed software is doing dangerous things that are risky. So I go back to it. I would much rather see us use existing legal structure that we have in place for consumer protection, for liability, for this implied liability.
But you're going to have to set some precedent. You're going to have somebody be actually held liable. And they do, right? People sue and you settle out of court and all that other bullshit, but it's never enough to actually cause any pain. Stock price drops for maybe a week and then it's back and rebounded. And
well, you hit the nail on the head, Evan. You hit the nail on the head. It's because they settle out of court. Because if this went to court, then that becomes public record. And that becomes a point of discussion. And journalists and others, scan and comb those public records so that they can have news stories to talk about. So I think part of the problem is they throw the big check at the person that was like, screw it, I'm suing. And then they come in, they're like, hey, let's arbitrate this. I'm going to start writing zeros and you tell me when I should stop. Right. And most people, not all, but the majority of people are going to go, yeah, okay. And they're like, please sign this form and you don't say shit about nothing. And here's your big fat check. And I think if more people actually took it to court, where it had to be debated in open court on public record.
Yeah.
You know, some average Joe.
Yeah. One to your point too, Ryan. I mean, there are
Microsoft just goes 20 lawyers and they're screwed.
How long does it take after, a big breach before there's a class action suit, or many?
Well, hell, I mean, not even a day. You got to look at the Pipeline Boys. They got nailed within 24 hours with a class action.
And it's not going to hurt.
Well, I mean, it won't hurt a damn thing because it just means that the price of oil, they charge an extra cent on the price of oil.
Right. And so I think the only way you're going to get change, like true change and accountability, is it has to hurt. It's like raising kids, right? If I give you a consequence that just doesn't, it sucks because we're dealing with fucking adults, right?
Yeah.
But with kids, it's like, I have to give you a consequence that's going to get your attention enough so that you don't repeat that same shitty behavior.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
So what's the shitty behavior?
Hang on, hold that thought just for a second, because I do want to explore that one. But the other problem is, and the other consequence that we see, aside from just somebody sitting down and going, we're going to write you a big check, again, to Jen's point, is what happens is, let's say, Evan, you're pissed off with Excel. Let's be perfectly honest, we kind of all are. But you're done. Fuck it. I'm done with Excel. I'm going to sue.
They're doing fucking AI for dead people, and I can't get my fucking spreadsheet to work.
I get it. All right, so you're done with it. You're going to sue Microsoft because Excel's just shit. Microsoft isn't going to turn up and write you a check with zeros. What Microsoft's going to do is they're going to put one room of one floor's worth of lawyers on you, and you'll never see the light of day for every single piece of paperwork that they decide to question. You know the deal. They're going to just flood you with lawyers and crap and everything else. I mean, that's the other problem with this whole thing. We're up against an army of lawyers, short of taking a bunch of those out and shooting them.
Well, and that's when you talk about negligence, so you've got civil and you've got criminal, right? In civil law, you can do that. In civil, you can pound me with a whole bunch of lawyers and I cave because I just can't afford it.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if you go the criminal route, now you're going against the government. Now you're going against the state. Now you're going against the people. And I think at some point we need to make something criminal. It needs to, I mean, it sucks. I hate for a CEO to go to jail, but if
we already do this. We just need to add this to the list. We already have a list of shit they can go to jail for. It's not like we're asking for CEOs to go to jail and there's no other way they can go to jail. No, we have a whole laundry list of shit that if they do, they go to jail. So that, getting this added to the list, because I do think at a certain point, failure to do the fundamentals is gross and willful negligence. It's 2021, not 1991. Okay, this is getting to the point where it is gross and willful negligence, not taking the extra day. I'm sorry it sucks. I'm sorry your product isn't going to release this week, right? We hold the automotive industry to that standard. We hold that pipeline industry to that standard. Let one of those welds fail on one of those pipes, and they're going to be in the deepest shit ever, right? Because that should have been inspected and signed off and checked 10 times.
But does the CEO go to jail?
If enough people die.
Yeah, there we go. Can I kill people?
I mean, take like the Exxon thing in in the Gulf of Mexico. Did anybody go to jail for that?
Checking. Keep talking.
I don't know, and I doubt anybody's going to go to jail for starting the ocean on fire. Right?
Yeah, that's a scary one.
But it looked cool as hell. Shit,
it looked like the Eye of Sauron. That was some spooky shit, man.
I was watching that. I'm like, if the ocean can't put that shit out, what the fuck are you gonna do?
Those boats just spraying water. I'm like,
That was I get it. That's shitty for the environment, but fuck, it was cool looking.
But I agree that there's a lot of hurdles to this. But
totally. Man. Guys, I gotta go. I gotta just help out for a sec. So talk about that. On the Exxon one, the captain was actually acquitted, tried on a minor conviction, and then that was thrown out as well. Now I'm gonna help out with the toll. Back in a sec.
Okay. So I think you'd have to write the statute like
Just keep going. Looks like you're
really
going to the-
carefully, right? I mean, maybe you start with, but you know, this fits really well with what we've talked about before, Ryan. We've talked about the transition from the physical world to the digital world, right? And how now those things are so ingrained or interconnected that you can't separate them anymore.
Right.
You know, something digitally can fucking kill me, and it will more and more and more. So then, you know, you've got physical assault, right? Because we can't hold the actual perpetrator, you know, the one who compromised the vulnerability, accountable, because we don't have jurisdiction in a lot of cases, right? So yeah, we'd have to do something like you created this thing that was just so fucking dangerous that you were negligent, and you do need to go to jail, because the money thing ain't gonna do it. I mean, these are companies that have many billions of dollars and armies of lawyers.
Right. No, and I don't think you can and all financial penalties do is ultimately hurt the consumer.
Now, the third leg of law in the US is regulatory law, right? Which is not, they don't call it regulatory law, they call it administrative or whatever the fuck it is. But anyway, it's where a government agency enforces it, right? Like the FFIEC or OCC or, you know, FDA.
Right. Well, and they control your ability to be a business, right? So
that's another way to go about this.
Right. So, and I like that aspect, by the way. If you're going to make, you know, and I know this is going to sound a lot like stifling innovation, and it doesn't have to. But
maybe we need that. Honestly, if we're adopting technology faster than our ability to secure it, maybe we do need to slow the fuck down.
I'm back.
You know, I think
Sorry,
there's
I interrupted you, man.
bad though for, okay, you have passed, like, I can't just start making gas line. Like, that's not like, no matter how much I want to start a business making gas line in my garage tomorrow, I will not be able to bring my product to market. I can make the best gas line ever fucking made, and I will not be able to bring my product to market because I am not certified. It has not been inspected to standard. I was not authorized to manufacture that to that standard, you know, all those things. And we do this in every other part of our life. Your microwave has more scrutiny applied.
But hang on. Two things. Well, several things. How many years have we been piping gas for?
A lot more than we've had computers. I'll give you that.
There we go. And that's part one. Then part two, exactly along those lines. And unfortunately, to your point, how many people have potentially died because of incorrect fittings or incorrect system? I mean, you've only got to look. I mean, aviation industry is just as bad. It's like, oh shit, we didn't realize that until the latest airplane plowed into the ground, and then they're like, we should probably fix that.
And I get that, man, but we've got history on our side. We don't have to wait to be 100, 200 years old before we do these things, because it's so fucking obvious.
Well, yeah, okay, to you and I, and to anybody with an ounce of common freaking sense, but that's the problem. And again, we go back to humans. We go back to humans. We unfortunately seem to only learn when something happens.
Well, that's
we
why
only react.
Yeah, and it's got to happen enough to where it actually hurts. I mean, it's got to hurt.
Yeah,
it's not like, oh, that was an inconvenience. You know, like my wife. I'm going to out her on this. She got a speeding ticket in Georgia, right? We were coming back from Florida and we were coming through Georgia. She was going like God knows how fast. The state trooper pulled her over, and I had one of those masks because the pandemic was still on. I had one of those masks with the blue line on it.
Yeah, and
I was like, oh, I'm going to try to get us out of this. So I put that mask on. I'm like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, he didn't give a shit. So, but they gave her a ticket. It was like $500, man. It was expensive as hell. Yeah. And then they still suspended her license. And so she called and she's like, I paid this. And like, oh no, you got classified as a super speeder. She's like, what the fuck? She's like, what the fuck is a super speeder? Like, oh, that's another $250. You know,
shut up.
Ouch. But you know, that's painful enough to where, you know, I don't want to keep speeding. I don't want to get, you know, $750 tickets and have to deal with the hassle. That's painful enough for me not to do it.
Right. But you had to, okay, so, you know, again, without outing or without getting all preachy and shit, you had to go through that pain and suffering. You
Right.
know as well as I do, if you go over the speed limit, the probability is at some point in time you're going to get nailed. So you play the probability game. You're talking to somebody who does it on a semi-regular basis.
Right.
You know,
I do too, but
yeah, and so
my wife
that's
always
the thing.
gets the ticket.
I mean, so there we go. It's like we play that probability game in other areas of our life, and we assume that we can get away with it. We play that same probability game in the software world, and we can't now. Back to Ryan, back to your thing. I can't play that probability game in the piping of petroleum or gas or anything else because I'm no longer allowed to go fast and loose with the rules because too many people have been blown up.
Well, so the we have safety standards for these things, right? And most of those are physical realm things, right? Because I think that's also a big play here. Like when the pipeline is leaking and it explodes, well, that's physical. I can see that shit. I can feel it.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the digital stuff that I think it just flies into the radar and everybody just, oh, okay, whatever, you know.
It's the same with the speeding. You know, it's the same argument with speeding. Until something happens, well, shit, I'm just speeding. I just got my foot down. Who cares? It's a wide, I mean, especially in this country, it's a wide ass open road. Good God's alive. Why shouldn't I be allowed to do 150 on the road? It's wide open. Nothing else is around. Screw you all. I'm doing 150. Well, until something happens, like a deer steps out or a tire blows, or I unfortunately meet a flipping left lane lemon, there's no consequences. And that's in the physical world. Yeah. And so it's again, humans, for whatever bloody reason, we don't learn until it's too late.
So I would argue that we have hit a point where it is becoming too late. I think we're there. I think we've hit the point. Average person on the street knows what ransomware is. That's happened. 6 months ago? No. If I'd asked the average person on the street, I kind of think I might know what that is.
Yeah, and I think they know the concept. I don't think they know what it is because I was
Fair
talking.
enough. But they're aware.
Yeah, for Care 11, I was like, so tell me what ransomware is. I'm like, you don't know? He's like, well, I know it like takes your stuff and you can't get at it anymore. I'm like, yeah, that's the concept. This is how it works. He's like, oh, all right. This is like a TV dude. It's like,
right. No. And I'm not saying they understand the intricacies of ransomware. What they understand is computer stuff affecting my ability to get bacon, computer stuff affecting my ability to get gas. I think the average person is now becoming aware of the relationship between the computer and their physical interactions. And so I think, I'm hopeful. You guys know me, I'm Captain Optimism. I'm hopeful that we're at that pivotal moment where if we do this right, we actually could start to do something before the catastrophe arrives.
I don't think it hurts enough yet.
Huh?
I just don't think it hurts enough yet.
Fair enough. Then I'm counting on the insurance industry. Yeah. Start denying coverage. Because I'm going to go ahead and say the minute you deny a client coverage, they'll be calling me 5 minutes later.
How about if you did this? Because I've been kicking this around with buddies, in other conversations. Like what if you made it illegal to insure ransomware?
That'd be awesome, actually.
No. It'll go underground. You know as well as I do, it'll go underground.
It already has.
Well, it'll go.
You and I both know that if I pay certain people, they're going to get very upset with me, and the men in the Treasury Department, everybody's going to come knocking and say, "What the fuck were you doing paying those people?" So what do we do? Use that third party offshore, not having to follow our rule. I didn't pay them. I paid this guy.
Exactly. Right. And so that's a fringe, right? I mean, not most people wouldn't do that. Most people wouldn't know to do that. Right. They would So you've got a small percentage of the population that would go underground to do whatever. But you'd have a vast majority that would either have to self-insure, meaning I'll have to pay the ransom out of pocket, or go out of business. That would fucking hurt. And then, the buddy that you used to do business with, hey, how's business? Fucking, we had to shut down ransomware. That word spreads pretty fucking quick. I think that could be something to get their attention.
I don't see that happening because that's a cash cow. Negotiating ransomware, buying and selling and trading, it's a cash cow. Our industry's making a shit ton load of money on it.
Right. And it's all dirty money. So I'm saying
100%
if you made it,
with you.
But that's why you'd have to make it a law. You'd have to make it a law because laws are written for the people, right? And I'm being, I don't know, whatever the fuck you call it. But but you write it as a law, and so it doesn't matter if there's a bunch of money. I mean, they write laws all the time that fuck up people's money.
But there are some. Okay, all right. Let's take this to the next level. I like this stuff. Let's take this to the next level. Let's go back to the crisis. Oh, I don't know. How many years ago was it? When we had the financial crisis.
2008.
2008.
Yeah, okay.
That's when I started FR Secure. It was a great time to do that.
Oh, no shit. Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
timing.
I lost my house. I lost my house and all that too. Fuck.
Oh, shit. So, okay. You lost your house. But there were others that were too big to fail.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need several large car companies. Let's be perfectly honest on this one. But they were deemed too big to fail. So
Yeah, I was against that bailout, man. I don't like bailouts. Fuck bailouts.
Oh, there we go. So they're too big to fail, but at some point in time, so okay, let's take this to the logical conclusion. Let's say that let's go to your local gas provider, the ones that pipe gas to the house, or the ones that give you electricity, because you sure as hell know they ain't flipping ransomware proofed. They go down. Well, no, they can't go down. They're not allowed to go down. They're critical infrastructure. They have to stay up. We'll pay it. Okay, then let's say United States Postal Service gets its ass handed to it. Oh, no, they can't go down. Well, let's say the road mate. Oh, no, they can't go down. Oh, well, let's say the food. Oh, no, they definitely can't go down. No, they're part of the...
So we went halfway down this path with Obama's executive order and creating the NIST CSF. We went halfway down the path. They were getting it right? That is critical infrastructure. If there is an outage, there's a physical safety issue. People could potentially die. People could potentially freeze. It was critical infrastructure. So focus our attention on securing that. Like CISA, I don't know what the fuck you're doing right now, focusing on trying to do everything for everybody everywhere. I mean, get our critical infrastructure secured.
Fuck 'em. No, you know what? Let them die. Let them freeze. Because you know what's going to happen before your sorry ass freezes? You're going to go down to the headquarters of the place that's making you freeze, and you're going to burn the place down, and you'll stay warm with it. And you'll find where the CEO lives, and you're going to burn their houses down. And eventually, word's going to get around. Don't let that shit happen. Mob rules.
Well, there's that. I don't trust the mob, though. But yeah.
Well, yeah, you and I both.
Yeah, I get where you're going on that.
The mob doesn't have a brain, but you get the idea. There are consequences to that. And now, back to Ryan's point. Dear CEO, dear leadership, dear organization, you let your customers freeze to death. On your hands are 25 human popsicles. You are now done for whatever that is. Manslaughter, whatever they end up labeling it as.
Well, maybe that's what we have to wait for. Maybe we have to wait for somebody to physically die.
Yeah.
And then you can tie it back to, manslaughter or potentially murder if it's that negligent.
You know what? I take over a couple of lights, and we take over a few nests in the middle of winter, and we turn everything off, and you end up with a human popsicle.
Yeah.
Now let's see if the family, or, I mean, we already know that insulin pumps are vulnerable. We already know that the pills that you swallow are vulnerable. How many of those do we actually have to breach and do something so that now you have electronics ingested in a system, potential fatalities there? This again. So yeah, unfortunately, people die, which sucks because that shouldn't have to happen.
Okay, so back to if we made insuring ransomware illegal, that scenario you just talked about plays out too, right? You could make an exemption potentially for certain critical infrastructure industry things or not, but I think it's the common everyday, because we've got 9 million companies in the United States. Most of them are not critical infrastructure.
Yeah, hang on. It's 300,000 I remember doing the research on 300,000 what you would call enterprises and 30 or 31 million small to medium businesses in the US.
Yeah. So if I made here's the problem. I think if you wanted things to actually change, you'd have to have people be held accountable. So you didn't take proper steps to do fundamental things to protect yourself from ransomware, and you get ransomed and you go out of business. That shit happens, right? There's all kinds of reasons why people go out of business. It's sad, but hopefully you learned your lesson, and hopefully others saw it and they learned from your lesson. But then, because it has to be something like that. And we also have to, it should potentially get the attention of the common everyday person at home, because that's the only way you change legislation. It's because the legislators, their only concern is to get reelected, and they'll continue to get reelected as long as the population is ignorant to some of the things they're doing. If the population demands certain things from them and they want to get reelected, they'll do those things, right? We haven't demanded basic fundamentals. We're the only civilized country, I think, in the world that doesn't have a privacy law.
Right.
What the fuck? Just give us one. Nullify the state ones, for interstate commerce. California, if you want to have your thing for Californians, fine, but your jurisdiction ends in California. Right. But why? Well, the reason why is because nobody's fucking demanded it.
Well, I was going to say, Virginia, I was actually talking to the Virginia folks about this. And because so much of the internet goes through that general neck of the woods, they're like, we're actually in a good position to be able to argue for it to be more effective. And I'm like, yeah, go for it. I'll help you any bloody which way I can.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. If we go back to what Ryan, sorry, go on.
No, you go ahead, man.
So if we go back to where Ryan was with the whole, let's go back to code. Because, unfortunately, there's building blocks. So if we look at ransomware and we look at how it gets in, well, it's getting in because of potentially human error. Well, what's it taking advantage of? Well, not just the human, but unfortunately the very systems that they rely upon. So you go back to the building blocks of the systems, we do go back to software, hardware, systems, and the integrity and everything that makes them tick. So if we want to take a look at our own environment, we have to go back to those building blocks, to the logic for Ryan's talk this evening. What can we do, not just to be more effective? We already know what we should be doing to be more effective. We know that we should be we know that the SDLC we should have put in place should be more effective. We know we should be practicing DevSecOps like a freaking religion to some degree. Yeah, we're not.
Yeah, and I think I go back to it. You need some safety index. There needs to be some accountability. We already have all the frameworks. We already have all the mechanisms. We don't need to add anything new. We have everything we need and then some. What we do need to do, though, is set a minimum bar. Your code is not approved for release into the US economy unless it has met a minimum standard of due care and due diligence in checking the basic shit. I get that a 0 day is going to slip through. I get it. I get that somebody, you, Chris, right? You're gonna figure out some weird series of events. While we wait for Evan to get back, I'll tell you this quick story. One of the most interesting hacks I've ever encountered in my life was executed by a non hacker, well, I shouldn't say that, a non-security professional. It was a teenager at a Wendy's restaurant that figured out if you added cheese, fries, and bacon to a Frosty, then took away the cheese, then added it back, then removed the bacon, added an extra fry, and then took away the fries, you could open up the void menu without the manager password. Now, I assume at 2 a.m. working the drive-through, stoned as shit, they were just kind of jamming buttons and figured this out.
Oh,
And we had to chase it down as the software maker. We became aware of it because they had this unusual issue. They had a very large disconnect between what was in the register, what was in inventory, and what they believed had been sold.
Oops.
So what had been sold and what was in the register matched. The drive-through count didn't match the register, and the cooler was short a lot. And so they called us up and they're like, something's not right. We seem to be losing inventory. Our drive-through counter says these many cars came through, but our reconciliation says only these many cars came through. And so we had to open an investigation. And that's when we figured out that this kid was able to hack the register by doing this like insane combo with a Frosty.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
That shit's still going to happen. There's no way you're going to defend that. I don't care how many unit tests I put that code through. In a million years, I would have never, ever figured that out. And what it was doing is, and we did finally catch it. And what it was is that it was throwing an error, and the error handler for that module was not specific. So it surfaced the error to the next error handler up, which happened to be associated with the void menu, which then invoked a call to the void menu on a refresh, which is what brought the menu up. Right. So the way the error handler worked was
loopy.
First things first, try to refresh the screen. Right. And if that doesn't work, then move to the next set of logic in the error handler. Can't account for that.
I love those.
Yeah. There's no way to account for that. That's insanity times 5. Having said that, I do believe that we can mandate a minimum standard for input validation, for, code, for SQL injection, for, stack smashing, right? Like there are some things we can do, some basic buffer overflow stuff, right? Like make sure that if it's supposed to take a number, it refuses the letter, and put an appropriate level of error handlers in place so that if it does start to freak out, there should be a global error handler that doesn't allow for injection to the stack, but then recycles and refreshes the other modules. There is a way to do this in error handling where you don't get a race case. So I think mandating that, like, hey, not going to volunteer to write the code, but the code for a global error handler that doesn't that hard.
Okay, so yes. But let's face it, we've been talking about error handling for, how many years? How often have we broken systems that way? Not exactly through asking for Frosties, for God's sakes, but how often have we broken systems by, you guys remember?
What's the one thing?
56 A's.
What's the one thing that's missing?
1.
Accountability.
Yep.
Yeah, I know.
All right, boy.
And that's the frustrating thing. We've been
kill more people.
We've been in this industry for a long time, man. And it's my biggest frustration is we're still focused on the same fucking things 30 years later. We figured it out. Everybody, when you give a talk, right, you always see people nodding their heads. Yeah. I get it. Are you fucking doing it? No. Why?
Right.
Well, it's too much work, or it's, operationally cumbersome. Well, I don't give two shits. It's the right thing to do.
Here's what I want. Here's what I would love. And actually, you guys we've talked about this a little bit before about what do we want to do? Get everything paid off, get everything sorted out. You know what I want to do? Here's what I want to do. I want to take a team of us, and I want to set up a lab. Mm-hmm. And I want to test things, and I want to basically do a free like PC Magazine, Consumer Lab, which magazine for our industry's products. I want to do it free. I want to get a bunch of us together and we surround ourselves with enough legal shields that we can do it. And we go out, we buy the gear, and we put it through the ringer, and we give it a number. And that gets published, publicly published. If you buy this phone, if you buy this piece of hardware or software, if you install it, this is what's going to happen or has the potential to happen. There's no ads, there's no services, there's no sponsorship, there's no nothing.
Well, dude, this fits perfectly with the Gray Matter Society. That's
Yeah,
still going.
yeah.
That's still going. It's just, that's not going to, for me, it's not going to hit full steam until, 799 days now. So,
Yeah.
But that fits perfectly because we're going to operate the same way, right?
But
We'll make
that's
it part
Yeah.
of that.
That's,
There's
I
not
mean,
going to
to
be
me,
any bias.
that's it. No bias, no nothing. Everything, Ryan, to your point, it gets a baseline, a standard baseline. We talk to the peers in our industry to at least try to get some level of consensus about what a standard baseline is. We can argue it for a bit, but there's some simple shit that we all know needs to be done. Great. So this is your simple shit baseline. Does it even pass that? Yes or no? Then we get to the studio. Well, where is it on the studio? Here it is. Okay, why? In simple English, so that a normal consumer can pick it up like they can pick up a can of beans or a can of pumpkin or a freaking, your Frosty and go, this is good for me, this is bad for me, this is likely to kill me, this is likely to make me safer, this is likely to induce diabetes, take your pick on this one. This will put my data on the internet. This will explode my information. This will hand my data to the Russians. This allows me to get ransomware. I want that.
And only then will you be able to truly define what's negligent and what's not.
Right.
Because then you can objectively set a bar somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. If you're below this bar, if you want to do a score, let's say you're below 50.
Yeah.
You're now exposed, right? If
Yeah.
you're between 50 and 70, you're a little less exposed. You know what I mean? But you can set that bar. It's the same thing. Yesterday I was talking with my CISA buddy, and we were talking about doing, all the services that they're offering, everybody. And I was like, why don't we team up? Why don't you take my shit and go do assessments with that, right? That way you don't have to actually coach them and do all that shit because you're not doing it right. And he's like, well, whatever. And so it's ironic that today they released how many assessments they had done in 2020. 37. I'm like, the fuck, you got like millions to do. How the fuck are you going to get through, 37? But then the discussion went to this baseline, like what's good and what's not good, right? When you look across the landscape of all the shit that you're trying to do, what do you define as good and not good? Because 37 ain't going to be a good number. You got such a huge sample error rate there. You can't define it. You have to set a baseline. You have to set what the fuck is everybody doing? It's the same thing with software development or anything that you want to define the bar. We got to get there at some point. So I love the idea. And I think that's what we do with the Gray Matter Society, another part of it.
I like it.
Because it's simple. That's the nice thing about it. That baseline's been set. OWASP, for crying out loud, does it even creep past OWASP? Can I still use SQL injection to pull your credentials that you so lovingly gave the damn thing as you handed over your money? Does it just hand them over to the Russians without a shadow of a doubt? Can I, if I lean on the keyboard, you guys remember that one, if I lean on the keyboard, will it fail over into admin mode?
Right. All good stuff. Well, gentlemen, I'm gonna call this one a little early tonight. I'm pretty tired. Got up early, had a long day.
You still look good even when you're tired, man.
Thanks, does, man. Doesn't he?
I think it will. But I want to get a little bit of beauty rest. I got a big one tomorrow. I got a bunch of stuff I got to do. I got to record like 3 sessions. So if you guys are free to keep going, but I'm gonna drop.
No, we're good, man.
We're good. Yeah, we're
We're-
good. I got
We're in this together.
Yeah, we're in the middle of New York somewhere. I have no flipping clue where.
Well, let's do some parting words then, Ryan.
Parting words. So y'all work at companies. Some of you work at companies that do software development. All of you work at companies that use software. Start having conversations about what are we doing to ensure that the software is the lowest risk possible. Start having those conversations. Start bringing it up. Make it a meeting topic. Make your leadership aware that this is an area of concern, that it isn't just the firewall and it isn't just the backups, that we do need to start asking our vendors more critical questions about what are they doing in their development practices that's ensuring to the best reasonable level possible that they've taken, the basic foundational steps to ensure the least risk to my company and doing business with them.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I like that. Well, and for me, it's it'll be interesting to see what comes from this bill of goods thing, with the executive order, right? I think that was the one thing I was excited about from the Biden's executive order, was having a bill of goods, so I know how you made this software, all the shit you're calling and all that other stuff. I think that's a step in the right direction. We'll see, like I said, what comes of that. But I think a lot of times people don't realize how much they actually compound their problem. We've always said the complexity is the worst enemy of security, because that's true, right? So that means the more software I add into my environment, right? Because we buy software like it's fucking candy. More software. Most organizations have, cross, what do you call that? Capabilities, right? You have a piece of software, you have like 5 pieces of software that can do this one thing. Why the fuck do you have 5 pieces of software for that? Why don't you condense that? Because what happens is you also compound this problem that we're talking about, right? Every one of those pieces of software has vulnerabilities in it, right? Some of those, development shops that made some of that software are better than others, right? But you can take a chance with one, but your chances get do the math. Your chances get a lot worse when you got 10 or 20 or 100, right? So what I would do in my own environment is take a really good look at my software inventory. What do I got? What am I running? Can I get rid of some shit? Because that's, certainly going to help. And then go after, like you said, go after those ones that, this is essential software, so we must have it. Well, then do some vetting, go deep with it. That's my 2 cents.
Nice. I think mine's simple. Yeah, mine's simple. And it kind of goes to both of your points earlier, which is we already have all of the tools at our disposal to solve this problem. We don't need more regulations, more rules, more anything. That's there. I don't need to do any more. We just kind of need to go look in the mirror and go, how can I do it better?
I like that.
Yeah.
Get a mirror. That's where your problem is.
Oh man, that's what Jesse's saying was. Jesse was like, "There's a shortage of what is it, mercury or something." I was asking why. Is like, well, because nobody's looking in a fucking mirror these days. I'm like, you're right, we're not. Too many people. Back to we have all the tools at our disposal. If we actually looked in the mirror and said, what can we do better with them?
And I think one of the things that we can go, sorry. One of the things that we try to do is hold the mirror up to you, right? I mean, that's what I'm doing with the states right now. And we talked about that last week, and, I'm going to take that advice. But honestly, a big part of this is like taking the mirror and like forcing them to look at themselves. This is what you look like.
Yeah.
So look for opportunities to do that if you're in that kind of business, if you're an information security consultant. And don't worry about what they're going to think. Don't worry about if they're going to be offended if you tell them the truth. There are other customers out there that want to hear the truth. So fuck it. Sleep well knowing that you did it right.
Yes, that's the boy. Yeah. I am the living proof of that, courtesy of this week. So that's for another evening.
That's right. Well, it's your show next week, man. Ryan and I will be in Puerto Vallarta.
Nice. You're going to be down there on the water. I'm going to be on the water in New Hampshire, hopefully, or under it. Maybe that's what I'll try and do. I'll waterproof the iPad, and I'll do mine from the bottom of the lake.
Yeah, I hope we get to do the show next week. I mean, I know that we're all out, but this is good therapy, and I think it just adds to the story when we're doing it from different places. So hopefully we get a team.
Yeah, I'm up for it. Let's put it that way. I think it's fantastic.
Good.
Awesome. Sounds good,
Thank
guys.
you, Ryan.
Love you
Get some
both.
rest, brother.
We will.
Yeah, go get some rest. Love you guys.
Thanks, guys. I'll catch up with you
Love you
soon.
too, man.